Welcome to the Band Shop Podcast, Season 2, Episode 7. We've got the Obnoxious Boot, a.k.a. Q, is with us today. What's up, buddy?
What's up? Is it nap time yet?
Ben and Jen are going to be doing most of the hosting today. I'll be jumping in and out here. But I'll leave it to them to do most of this.
My shoelace is untied.
Which one?
That's unfortunate.
My left.
Well, you're in a really good position to fix that right now.
That would take too much effort.
So, hey.
Hey.
Is it nap time yet?
Is it nap time yet? That was my question.
We have yet to do a podcast where the guest and the host just nap.
So do you want to take a nap?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, sleep does.
Ben, just start asking questions.
Why me?
Ben, just shut up.
I was just told to ask questions, and then I was just told to shut up. So which one is it?
Ask questions.
Shut up when I'm talking to you.
You should start
Shut
with
up.
questions.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. So, who the fuck is the Obnoxious Boot? Are you and the Obnoxious Boot the same thing?
No.
Like checkers and rallies?
No.
Obviously those are the same thing. If you guys actually don't know, rallies and checkers are the same place. And Q was trying to tell me earlier, he's like, I prefer checkers. And I'm like, they're the same place.
I did not say that.
Well, it's neither here nor there, but we're not here to talk about
The
fast
Obnoxious
food.
Boot is me plus 7.8 billion people on this planet
Cool.
at any given time.
It's interchangeable.
So if you're listening and watching this, you are the Obnoxious Boot.
Does that mean we are the Obnoxious Boot too?
Ben and Zach, but not you.
Not me.
Because you beat his ass too hard.
Because you beat my ass too hard in Mario Kart.
I seen it. It was
I
ruthless.
shouldn't have picked Yoshi.
Well.
Anyhow, so what's up?
Nothing.
We've napped.
Yeah.
We've eaten some good food, which is why I need a nap. Jen made some awesome homemade McGriddles.
Amazing. And of course, you just did a set.
And I just did a set, which was like my first set in 4 months, which is probably why I'm really tired.
I was two-stepping on the couch.
Were you?
Just from the couch.
I was trying to not two-step.
Mostly elbows.
I could like not
recorded
see
it.
because the
Not a
red
lot of
lights
footwork.
pointed at me.
Right. They're pretty blinding.
I felt like Jesus during his crucifixion.
There was a light show at the crucifixion?
I mean, that's,
Yeah, red lights came down from heaven and murdered Jesus. Isn't that what happened?
I thought it was the nails through the wrist.
I mean, I thought it
was through his
spears.
hands.
Isn't there a pretty big artery through your
Spears
wrist
through
that
the-
could be
the
combusted?
sides. I mean, I don't know. I think it was a mixture. Of
Apparently it was the
I don't know.
light
He
show.
got stabbed in the
That
ribs
show.
and only water came out.
That was bile.
Maybe.
Allegedly.
I mean, I don't think they had bile 2,000
But enough
years
talk
ago.
about fictional characters. What is the one thing that you are most excited about for 2021?
Sleeping?
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Providing 2021 is anything like 2020, sleep is probably the best thing to do.
I would like,
truth.
I mean, like, if we get back to it, I would like to, you know, tour a little bit. Even if it's just regionally, Midwest. Just to, you know, get out of the house for a couple days. Balls to the wall! Anyways,
Touring would be cool.
Yeah, being able to do shows
Shows in general, yeah,
would be
cool.
nice. You
but what's weird is, like, I actually, and, like, not to get too real too quick, but, like, I actually, for half of my day, like, I wake up and I go, man, I can't wait till we get back to shows. And then for half of my day, I just go, like, man, I don't want to ever book a show again. Like,
I think you gotta have a healthy middle
Which
ground.
I would
part
like
of the
to-
day is which?
it depends. But I would like to play a show when we get back to normal, like play shows and stuff. But like, I've booked shows for like 24 years. And like, I know you guys know at least a little, like, it's just stressful. You're like, man, my best friends are coming into town, and this is how much money I'd like to give them. And that means I need 33 people to show up. So realistically, 8 people will show up.
Yeah.
And my local opening band will ask if all 5 of their girlfriends can come in for free, because why would they pay for a show?
I mean, they are their girlfriends. Think about the amount of workload they have on them.
Yeah.
They're the girlfriends. That shit's so whack.
That shit is so whack.
I hate that.
I mean, she pays for all
With
of
the
our
exception of Adam Loki giving me like a photo pass one time at a show because I was there to shoot, I have paid for every other show.
I would 100% like if there's a 5-band member and they call like and they're like, hey, can one of our girlfriends get in for free? Or hey, we don't have a merch person, can one of our girlfriends do merch? Anything like that. Or like they get there and like I already told one of the dudes that his girlfriend was good, and then one of the other dudes is like, you know, like, we haven't really been getting paid well, and like my girlfriend really can't afford it, and I really can't afford to cover her. If it's, and that's what's weird. If it's an $8 or $10 show, I'll be like, yeah, that's cool. Don't worry about it. Whatever. As long as it's not something they've constantly done every time they've come to play.
Right. If it's a low-cost show.
But well, that's the thing. If it's like a $3 or $5 show, I usually be like, you can find $3
Or like
or
make it make
$5
sense. If you're
somewhere.
right, exactly.
The worst thing, and I won't even call out the band because they were a local band.
Oh, I love the call-out culture.
And
Though.
I don't want to call them out. But
All right.
and I mean, granted, this was like 4 years ago, but like they showed up to a show, and there was 5 of them, but somehow they had 9 girlfriends that weren't gonna pay.
That sounds a little fishy.
Yeah, and like
Could have been polyamorous.
I was gonna say, or some poly shit.
It could be, it could be one of those. It could
Or
be a
open
relationship.
it definitely
that
wasn't.
shattered.
It was definitely the singer didn't have a girlfriend, but he had 4 girls
There with him.
chasing after him, and like he
Oh.
was trying to decide which one he was taking home that night.
And see, that's when I, as the vocalist, would have been like, all right, all of you guys, whoever pays the most to get in, that's who gets to be with me for the night.
I
You
always
pay 20 at the door, that's cool. If Sally pays 23, glizzy time.
Man, I don't think anybody's named Sally anymore.
We're going to go with it for the sake of the fact we're
Okay.
on camera.
But
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I used to always make the joke that like, what's the point of having a girlfriend if she's not paying for your show? That means you at least have that one person.
That's like the most simple way to support your partners.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most basic. I mean, I have had to single-handedly smell all of Contrabird at one time. And you're telling me you can't pay to get into a show? There could be worse things that you do to support your
And
partner.
I mean, like, the one other thing that like kind of is frustrating in that is like completely outside of the booking part of it, but like sometimes it's a little different if there's 5 of you. Like, let's say like a set of shirts is like $25 for $160, but there's 5 people in the band, so it's really only costing each person like $35.
Yeah.
Where I'm the only person in my band and I'm the only person paying for those shirts.
Right.
And then like the girl I'm talking to at the time is like, oh, I really like that design. You should give it to me for free. We're talking. And I'm just like, that literally means I have to skip 2 meals and maybe I can't drive to work.
But sure, because we're talking.
Yeah.
Can I mention something that's completely unrelated?
Sure.
I think I broke my toe and just figured it out.
Oh yeah.
Because when I walk, my toe hurts really bad right here, like on the spot between where it connects to my foot and whatever. And I just was kind of rubbing it because it hurts, and it hurts even worse.
I'm going to assume, not knowing your actual pain factor right now, that you probably didn't break it, but you probably did dislocate it.
How do I relocate it?
It just heals.
Just a
over
time thing?
Yeah. It's kind of the same way like your MCL or your ACL heals in your knee.
Do you think the MCL cafeteria was named after MCL?
No.
Different one.
Yeah.
Different collection of letters.
Yeah.
Words. So, out of every band that you have ever played with, who was your favorite band to play with? And
Crazy
like
Town.
most fun. I'm not going to say favorite.
Crazy. Oh, well, favorite is Crazy Town because realistically there is no reason that Boot should have opened for Crazy Town. But everybody in Cincinnati knows Crazy Town is like my favorite guilty pleasure. And more so even than playing with them, having the singer like come up and be like, I really enjoyed what you did. And me being like, here's a free shirt. And him being like, yo, bro, I know how the road is. Like, how much is that shirt? I'm not taking it for free.
That's actually really cool. Could have took it for free. Didn't want to.
I don't know. There's been like a couple of funny shows where like there's no reason I should be playing. Those are always like the best shows. Like I opened for Shaggy 2 Dope. And like I literally played first, which was like 7.5 hours before Shaggy 2 Dope. And I didn't even care. I was there to work security. And the promoter was like, hey, do you want to open this show? Like, it's easy. I know you can just pull it out of the van and plug in and let's go. And I was like, yes. And I ended up doing like 250 in merch that night.
Whoa.
And like...
That's awesome.
Ended up not even staying for Shaggy 2 Dope. Because, I mean, it is kind of rough.
That's a flex.
Yeah.
It is kind of rough when you play at 4:20 and Shaggy 2 Dope goes on at 12:20.
Right. Makes sense.
But actually, the whole reason that I had to miss Shaggy 2 Dope that night was because I had to pick up my parents from the airport.
Priorities.
Yeah. And
Shaggy 2 Dope would definitely want you to pick up your parents from the airport.
Absolutely. Because he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
ICP is really cool. It's just their fans that kind of suck sometimes.
Who is like, or I don't want to say who, but like, what is your least favorite show that you've ever played and why?
That would be hard to think about just because I feel like if it really was my least favorite show, I would have blocked it out.
True.
There was a show I played in Lima with Eternal Void where it was like a packed house. I got to play like 3rd out of 5. Eternal Void played 4th. It was kind of more like not a biker bar, but like a small town bar setting, and like everybody just kind of stared at me, and like even one drunk dude like halfway through my set was like, "What the fuck is this? Where's your band?" And then a different drunk guy later like dumped his entire 32-ounce beer accidentally on all my merch.
Did you make him buy it?
I tried, and he was like, "Hell no, I'm buying none of your nonsense, blah, blah, blah. You shouldn't have clothes set up at a show."
What kind of bar were you at?
Like I said, Lima, Ohio.
Lima.
There was a time in Iowa where me and Daywalker were on tour. This wasn't a bad show, but like there was a lady there and she really liked one of the shirt designs I had. And like her daughter was like, "Oh, I'll buy it for you. Like, what size do you want?" And she literally like looked at her daughter and said, "I don't want to take this young man's clothes. He has to wear something."
Wow.
And like she just didn't get it. She didn't get that it was merch. She thought it was like clothes out of my suitcase.
Wow. How do you not understand what merch is?
It'd be like that sometimes.
She bought me a shot though because she thought I was hot. She was like 67.
So that's your pool is the 67 age group.
67 to 94.
You just sell them your clothes out of your suitcase
Yep.
and they give you a shot.
Yeah.
Hey. Whatever works, man. I mean,
So, I don't know. I'm trying to think like of some really, really dig deep questions for the obnoxious boot.
What is your percentage on peanut butter to jelly on a sandwich?
First of all, we just talked peanut butter and jelly, and I'm not prepared to talk.
I mean,
Peanut butter and jelly was somebody who doesn't get down with grape and uses white bread.
I use white bread because of my condition. I'm not allowed to eat wheat bread.
Well, true, but if you could choose, would you still choose white?
Yeah, wheat tastes like asshole.
Well, white tastes like bleached asshole, so.
Well, bleached asshole is better than dirty asshole.
I mean,
Is it?
Yeah.
Would you
think
rather put
so.
your tongue on a bleach piece of skin?
Yes.
Or like a slightly...
I mean, let's be real. The bleach is clean at least.
Like a
Well-
slightly dingleberry
No,
piece of skin?
there is no reason for dingleberries, honestly. Like, I don't understand how that ever comes about.
Hairs.
Unless you just have swamp ass, like, for days.
I mean, most
Ben just said
musicians
hairs.
do.
I'm pretty sure hairs cause dingleberries,
No, okay, so
but,
here's
you
the
know.
thing. Here's the thing. I think, like, a tablespoon of peanut butter between both slices of bread, evenly distributed across the bread, not like this heavy clump and then it gets really thin where the bread's poking through, and then I go back in with grape jam over only one of those slices because I'd rather the savory more than the sweet.
White bread, 40% peanut butter on the left side, 60% strawberry jam on the right side.
I think I'm more of like a 60-40.
And then you slam it together, and then you watch it like ooze out the side.
Yeah.
Just like you watch like the blood ooze out of dead bodies, and then you eat the sandwich.
I mean, I think I'm more of a 60-40 peanut butter. The 60.
You just had to make the
40.
blood comment.
I wish I could see Zach's face right now.
No, he just made the blood comment because he knows that I don't like blood.
Oh, of course.
You have to like blood.
No, I don't, and we're not going to listen to any of your little taglines that you
There's
used to tell
so
me
much
about.
blood
Stop,
flowing
stop,
through your
stop,
body
stop,
right
stop.
now.
So, I'm going to say this. When I was little, on peanut butter and jelly, when I was little, like, I went to stay with my grandma for the weekend when I was little, and she called my mom. My mom said she was like, "Yo, I made Jennifer peanut butter and jelly. She won't eat it." My mom's like, "Well, did you do this?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, did you smash it?" And my grandma's like, "What?" And she's like, "Did you smash it?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Well, she won't eat it unless you smash it together really, really hard." So my grandma smashes it, and I'm just like, "Thanks," and run off and eat it. So apparently when I was a kid, I'd only eat them smashed. Tried it as an adult. It's not the vibe. It's not the move.
I never understood how I'd go to other kids' houses and they'd only eat their peanut butter and jellies without crusts.
That's a bin thing.
I don't like crust.
That's so weird.
If he had it his way, I would cut crust off of everything.
Oh, for sure.
The crust is the best part.
You ever had a grilled peanut
knows
butter
how
and
you-
jelly?
No.
Oh, they're amazing.
They're really good. Like, think
They
grilled
are.
cheese,
But
but
I also like creamy over crunchy.
I do
Oh,
like creamy
of
over
course.
crunchy, but every once
you
in a
earned
while,
a little bit of
crunchy's
points
alright.
back there. Say blood again and you're done, though. But, I'm
Okay,
glad
back
that
to,
we
like,
covered
music,
peanut butter
you know?
and jelly already. That's important.
I
You
mean,
can't
it is.
judge a
Peanut
musician
butter's-
without knowing
peanut
their
butter
peanut butter and
is
jelly
definitely
preferences.
important in life.
Fucking
but,
uncrustable, though.
I mean,
That is overpriced bullshit.
It
I
is
mean, they're
overpriced.
great when you're on the road and you can just grab one from a store for $1.25.
Yeah, but I mean, Uncrustables are great if you also have like a toddler that refuses to eat the crust,
Yep.
which is
That's-
really, I feel like, what they're designed
I'd just
for.
tell him to grow up and give him a handmade sandwich.
Speaking of which, where is your toddler?
My toddler's at home. My older one is back here with me.
Everyone's a toddler until they're 17.
Wow.
I mean,
He's got his headphones on. He can't even hear you. So
Oh, that's
that's
okay. Jen is still a toddler.
True. Grandpa over here actually comes up with his own rules, so we'll just follow that.
Mm-hmm.
He is an elder, so I do have to listen to him.
Let's get back to music questions.
yeah. What are your inspiration? Like, what's your inspiration for the boot? Like,
Musically
yeah,
or
an influence on
ethically
music
or-
and
I'd say all of the above, starting with musically.
yeah.
Musically is Dillinger Escape Plan meets Madball meets Greg Bennick spoken word. Ethically, I don't know. There's so many, like, not to talk down on any of my friends, but like there's so many people that like this is the way a hardcore kid looks, this is the way a hardcore band sounds, this is the way a hardcore band acts, this is the way a hardcore band acts behind closed doors, this is the way a hardcore band releases music, this is the way this, and this, and like somewhere along the line somebody lost the point because like we were kind of talking about it last night. Like, I mean, like, there's so many bands that, like, everybody wants to be like, oh, this band, they're a really good band. They're a metalcore band. And it's, like, cool, but metalcore is a subgenre of hardcore, so they're still a hardcore band. It's hardcore kids, maybe playing a more metallic sound, but, like, metalcore is not a bad word.
It's not.
And it's part of hardcore. And, I mean, like, technically, for any of us that aren't playing Youth Crew, we're all playing metalcore. I mean, Obnoxious Boot is definitely a metalcore band. But I'm a hardcore dude.
That's yeah.
Not to mention metalcore's tight because you can always throw a panic chord in somewhere.
I love panic chords.
Yeah.
So I mean, I agree with that one. I mean, most of what you hear nowadays is or would be considered metalcore. I mean, I know people have taken it.
I mean, like, when I was growing up, like, my
but
favorite bands were, like, Earth Crisis, All Out War, and other bands like that. And to me, that's what hardcore is. But like the dudes that were 10 years older than me at that time were like, bro, these are metal bands. This is metalcore. And like really like first wave real metalcore, or what was really considered metalcore at the time, like As Hope Dies, Morning Again, depending on what take you take on, but Culture, Fault Line, other bands like that, like that's what metalcore was. And I mean, like Earth Crisis and All at War had a completely different sound than that. And then you have like second gen, like kind of middle, with like Martyr AD and Disembodied and stuff. And then you have third gen that actually like kicked it off, and that's what got everyone popular. You have your like As Lay Dying, Kill Switch, All That Remains, like all those bands. And I mean, like, if you actually look at it and actually want to be bored enough to read a paper that I wrote on it, we're actually in 7th gen metalcore right now.
What would be considered the first, like, year-wise, like, time frame for the first...
For, like, original metalcore?
Yeah.
For me, it's, like, 95 to 99. But, like, for other people, like, most people consider Integrity a metalcore band, where like to me Integrity was just always like a weird hardcore band. But I mean, if Integrity is considered the first metalcore band, then 90. And I mean, that's the thing, like everybody like usually starts off somewhere with rock, but I mean, and rock's been around for 70 years now, and hardcore's been around for a couple years before I was born, for so almost 40 years. But that's the thing, it's like still so young.
It really is compared
like you
to other
don't
music
know
genres.
what somebody's going to look at it in 20 years. And like where I think there's 7 generations of metalcore, they're going to say, well, this sounds like this sounds like this,
yeah,
this sounds
'cause
like
even
this, and there's only 4 generations.
You have bands like Black Sabbath that back when they first came out were considered like metal, but now they're like classic rock. So like a lot of
And
people
I don't even know if
consider
they're
them
classic rock. To me, Black Sabbath is just a doom band.
I mean, they really are. They are very doomy, but they just like to, agree with what you're saying. Like 20, 30 years ago, they were considered one thing, and now you look at them even, and they've changed what people look at them as. And even like some of the metal music back when I was first getting into it, from like the late 80s and early 90s, now has even kind of changed from what people call it, from what it was when it first was out. So that's something that I've wondered, what's the music that I considered being like hardcore and metalcore and like death metal and shit, like what's that gonna be,
I mean, like to me, Hatebreed is like a hardcore band, but to like,
I mean, I would agree with that.
People 10 years older than me, Hatebreed is extremely a metalcore band.
I don't know, I wouldn't call them a metalcore band, but
maybe some of their newer records.
It kind of seems like, I'm not very educated on genres, subgenres, or anything as much as you guys are, but it sounds to me like the genres and the subgenres kind of fluidly move with people based on their age groups or the year that it was, presented to the world or whatever. So I feel like no matter what you consider A, B, or C, as time progresses, the elders of the scene, so to speak, could disagree with what new metal is or what, and like it's always gonna be...
like, here's the best way to describe it. Like, they don't play exactly the same, but Acacia Strain and Traitors are both deathcore bands.
Yeah.
And Vince from Acacia Strain will tell you straight up, they are a bunch of hardcore dudes playing metal, so therefore they're a metalcore band. And most of the people in Traitors, depending on which lineup you're talking about, most of those dudes will say, like, we never really got into hardcore, we've always listened to death metal, and so, like, Acacia Strain will tell you that deathcore is a part of hardcore, and Traitors will tell you that deathcore is just a subgenre of death metal, and that metal and hardcore have nothing to do with each other.
Which they obviously do, at a certain point.
I mean, metal kids are lame, and hardcore kids are lamer.
I was going to say, I think they're both lame.
Yeah, I don't know.
If
We're
you
just
look
all
at it like
cocky
that.
assholes, and we just all want everybody to like us, but then we want to talk shit about everybody so people like us, which is dumb.
I mean, but it's true. I've seen it on both sides.
with Boot, do you have, I don't really know what else to call it other than a mission statement, but that's probably not the right wording. Like, what is your
mission statement?
yeah, like what is your
That's
what is
fine.
your message for Boot? Like, what do you want? What do you want from it?
I could die of a heart attack tomorrow because of my kidney failure. I could just croak for any other reason. And like I get that, and that's like my day-to-day thinking. But like you guys are healthy, and you could cross the street and get hit by a car. Like none of us are guaranteed tomorrow.
For sure.
Live every day with the effort to do what you can. Like some days I can't do what I would like to do because I'm not healthy enough to do it that day. But I should still just basically live life to its fullest. Make it enjoyable. Don't waste your life. Because, I mean, even if you're on this planet for 100 years, like, we all think of that as like, oh my god, this person made it to 100. That's so long. And then you think about the universe, and it's like, this random alien on a different planet that lives till they're 1,000, and they're not even born for 2.8 million years from now, is never gonna know what you did on this random planet 6 billion light years away. But the person next to you might have a better chance of getting through the day if you smile at them, if you hug them, if you give them a high five, if you give them anything positive.
Right.
And I really try to think about that all day, every day. And the only time I'm really bad at not thinking about it is when I'm on the road. Because I have real bad road rage. And most people don't know how to drive.
True.
Most people, when they're getting on the highway, they forget they're supposed to yield. And that just annoys me so much.
I get that. So for people that are watching this and they've stumbled across this and they haven't heard of you before, and this is their first time getting to hear your material, what would you want people to know as like an introduction to you? Like, what are you about in music, or even just things that you enjoy?
Well, my music's on every platform, so if you want to check out not live material, it's on Spotify, YouTube, Bandcamp, Apple Music, whatever that one thing Jay-Z owns.
Oh, I have no idea.
Tidal. Thank you.
Gotcha.
I don't know. The biggest thing is, just because somebody looks different or seems different, like, you still should give them a chance. Like, yeah, I don't have a band behind me, but, like, how is what I'm doing anything different than, like, what a rapper does?
It's not.
Right.
It's just different music.
Yeah, and I mean, like, why do I need... Especially in a time period where, like, basically everybody is getting rid of their bass players and just backtracking bass.
Oh, yeah. Or backtracking guitars, or...
Yeah, or, like...
Even drums
6
anymore.
guitar sets on your set.
There are bands that use drum tracks.
And I mean, and that's the thing, like... The only thing... I'm just trying to get my emotion and my feeling and my words out there. And, like, I get it that most kids, have to go through that themselves, and they're never going to learn, because I was the same way. I had, 100 people tell me, like, oh, you should do this, this, or this to, like, change your life. And I had to go through it myself to find that spot. Like, there were people along the way that said things that were inspiring or life-changing or mind-changing, and my life probably wasn't as bad as it could have been if I would have gone down a different path. But I would also say that I wasn't really a positive person until 2012. When I first heard that No Bragging Rights Cycles record, it kind of just changed me. Like, I was a very angry person in my 20s, and I just feel like over time that anger kind of left. And, like, I still get angry, But like in my 20s, I would say I was angry all day, every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, probably from 20 to 27. And then I just tried to change my mindset and like live a more positive life. Because like I said, life's too short to...
Right.
Like, you don't want to be 50 and just think everybody's out to get you when they're really not. They're just trying to live their life too.
Right.
And like the biggest problem that, in my opinion, that boomers have is that boomers were basically told their entire life that like you're the center of your own universe. And that's cool, but they also think they're the center of everyone else's universe. So then you have like people that are like my uncle, who will like walk across a crosswalk and a dude will almost run him over. And like he just thinks like he's been so slighted because of that. And it's like, dude, you're not the center of the universe.
Right.
And you just kind of have to realize like, you know, maybe that dude's driving fast and almost ran you over through a crosswalk because he's late to pick up his daughter, or he's trying to get away from somebody else, or maybe it's a woman and she's trying to get away from somebody else, or maybe he's late for work and this is the last day they're going to give him to be late before he gets fired and loses his job. And like, you never know where the other person's coming from.
For sure. I think that like a simple paradigm shift can mean so much. Like you said, you never know what somebody else is going through. When you're willing to shift your paradigm and think about what the obstacle could be for them, or even just, it's none of my business what the obstacle is, it's not all about me. That's always helpful. And I think that whether it's about boomers or, you know, anything else, I think that adopting an ideology from when you were raised a certain way, being willing to say when you become an adult or an age of intelligent enough to make your own choices, it's okay to grow out of bad ideologies.
So the biggest thing that kind of leads into to me is like our current political system. And to me, the biggest problem is we have, you know, small political changes every year. Like small changes in the world, small technological changes, small everything like that. But I would say about every 40 years we have like a large movement that just goes through everything. And the biggest problem is when you have an adult, like usually in your 20s is when you're idealistic and you want to go out and you want to fight for something. And then by the time you're 40 though, you've kind of like settled down, you're stuck in your ways, you don't want to change. It's really hard for people in their 40s to change. Like I'm almost 40, and like as much as I am open to everything being thrown at me daily on different scales and stuff, like I feel a slight pushback inside myself. And like I'm able to still be idealistic and fight that, but most Americans aren't.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that whether it is, you know, politics, racial issues, excuse me, or anything like that, doesn't matter what exactly it is, so many people that are older than me, even older than you, their comeback is always, well, that's how I was raised.
yeah.
But like, it's okay to outgrow poor raising. It's okay to outgrow things that, like you said, some things you feel that pushback, but there are other things where somebody your age, even if they were raised a certain way, like it's okay at almost 40 years old to be like, that's ignorant. And I don't feel like that's something I can back as a person based on what I've learned in life, so I'm just going to let that go. And not everybody's willing to do that, and they're so caught up in, well, that's how I was raised, but like that's not what, like how you were raised doesn't mean how it's right.
And like one of the biggest things is like a lot of people are raised in small towns.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I had a conversation with a guy the other day. He's in his 30s. He grew up in a small town of no more than 2,000 people. That town of 2,000 people has 2 black people. And from what he said, both these black people like live in nice houses. They have families, you know, like they're like higher ups at the plant that's in this small town. And like he literally goes like, they're not poor. Nobody treats them different in our small town. They're not being beaten by our cops. Therefore, no black person anywhere in this world is being mistreated. And like it's the same with the Trump thing. Like he didn't believe that Biden actually won. And that's because he was like, I know all 2,000 people in my town. Every single one of them voted for Trump. And because every single one of them voted for Trump, that means nobody anywhere voted for Biden. So how did Biden win?
Right, just like that small-minded mentality.
Yeah. And then, like, he doesn't realize, like... And that's the thing. You have, I don't know, 750,000 small towns nationwide where there's a lot of people that feel that way. And they don't think about people that live in a big city and how much those people in that big city are, like, just see things differently than that.
Right.
Like, I mean, like, my other uncle on my mom or on my dad's side, like, he tells me all the time, like, he lives in a slightly small town outside of Dayton. Like, it's not a 2,000 person town. It's probably like a 40,000 person town. And like, they've lived there for, I don't know, 20 years. And he has never walked through the neighborhood, walked anywhere around there, and never heard a racial slur. And like, I live in a big city, and I hear it from white people daily. Like, every day. And he was just, and we've talked about it, and I was like, I'm glad you don't have to see that, but you have to realize that it's there. And
right.
he just can't wrap his head around it.
Like, it's great that you don't have to,
he
hear
literally
about that, but it's still happening.
He literally thinks that it's not possible. That nobody uses racial slurs anymore.
You have to be able to step outside of your small box and realize there's a whole world out there where people are living that daily.
Yeah.
And I think that
people are just way too close-minded and way too ignorant.
I think it's very ignorant to just assume that what's happening in your own backyard is how the rest of the world is going or how it's ran. Because that's definitely not realistic at all. But
I mean, Greg. If Greg walks downtown Cincinnati and he's not with, 7 white people, if it's just him and me or him and one other person or just him, like, I've seen it. Cops just pull up to him and be like, yo, boy, what you doing? This isn't your neighborhood. And, like, when I try to tell somebody that, they're like, oh, that can't happen. That's not a real thing.
Oh, that's definitely
You're just
a real
making
thing.
it up.
Like, are you living
Just
under
like
rocks? This is literally what happens
getting
on a
pulled
minute-by-minute basis.
Yeah.
People getting pulled over in nice, white communities with, a white kid and a black kid just because there's a black kid in the car. And it's like, wait, what? That's profiling, and not just that, it's racial profiling at that.
I mean, like, and that kind of stuff doesn't make sense to me. Like, I mean, like, because of how much negativity I see, do I feel slightly different when I, like, run into a black person anywhere? Yeah, but I also, I fight that daily to be like, yo, like, this person is literally walking into this Dollar General. I'm going to get cheese. He's going to get milk. We're both there to get something for our kids. And, like, he just wants to get home safe. And I just want to get home safe.
Right.
And but I mean, like, I don't know. I see videos all the time. I saw a video yesterday of, like, a woman telling a black man, like, yo, this is a white neighborhood. Like, act white or get out. And he was like, I don't know what that means, but... And she was like, you have a barking dog. You should keep him inside. And he's just like, I still don't... Why does that make me...
And he shouldn't have to know what that means. That shouldn't even be a real thing. Like, neighborhoods are fucking neighborhoods. People are people. And I mean, there's a very thin line between saying, you know, oh, all lives matter, Black Lives Matter isn't a thing, and saying we're all humans, we should all be able to be treated as such. There is a thin line there, but Black lives do absolutely matter. But on the same token, they matter and they should be treated like people regardless. It's not that those things don't matter, but some people think that because everybody matters, they can promote all lives matter, when really that's just another way to kind of degrade BLM.
My biggest thing with all of that that's so frustrating, and it's always been frustrating, it's not a new thing, it's been frustrating for 20 years, is like, I went to Catholic school, you know, I was raised around Jesus, I still am a Christian, I believe in Christianity, but I also believe that my faith in Jesus Christ is for me. Like, I don't push it on other people. Like, I don't understand people that will, like, go out there and just be like, God's chosen people are white people. Like, anybody that's not white is not God's chosen people, and all those people are going to hell. And I'm just like, how can you even think that? Like, when Jesus was here, which you believe in, there is no way in hell that he was white. Like, not a chance.
No.
And it's just
had a pigment to his
everybody, you know, trying to find their way to better themselves. Like, I hate it when I drive through cities and, like, there's signs that, like, say, like, God hates fags. Like, if you actually believe in God, the way God is taught in every church, God hates nothing. Why would God hate his creation?
God is love, so how does any of that even make sense? Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's always been interesting. You know, when I was a kid, I was raised Pentecostal in church as a kid. I personally don't choose to follow that path anymore, but like you said, it should be about your own personal life, your own personal journey. It doesn't matter. The
only thing I will say about that, though, nothing against what you're saying, but, like, it should be about you, but if you think you're talking to God and God's telling you to kill gay people, then you're just crazy.
Oh, no, absolutely, no. I'm just saying, as much as I can sit here and hear that you say, I have a relationship, you know, it's with me, and that's how I feel, that's great. Just like I can say, I don't, and that's fine. You shouldn't have to push it down somebody else's throat. However, as a kid, growing up in church, I always heard, you know, people will try to pick and choose what they want from God's word, and you can't do that. As an adult, I totally see what that means. People will take religion and try to highlight certain points of it and utilize it to their own benefit. Yeah. And say things like, God's chosen people or this race, or God hates this, you know.
And, like, I understand that from, like,
that's contradictory to the word of God.
Leaders of the church, because I personally believe that any leader of any church is not, they're not using that church to promote God. They're using that church to promote control.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then you have your simple-minded people that go to that church, and, like, I don't want to talk down about them, but they just don't think it through, and they think everything that that preacher tells them, and then yet they still blame God when they lose their house, when they lose their car, when they lose this, but they don't blame that preacher who's living in a $12 million home.
Right.
And
it's from their tithe money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's not taxed.
And obviously, like, we're not gonna take a deep dive into religion or anything. It's not even what this is about. But it's not to say that we can't discuss it, because
I mean, it's a part of you too.
Relevant.
You know,
absolutely. But I definitely believe that. I grew up in church as a child, watching my mother tithe, you know, faithfully, and I used to think, I can't wait till I have a job so I can tithe. I want to give my 10%. What do they say a tithe is? Giving to the kingdom of God. What is the closest thing to the kingdom of God we have on this physical earth? The house of God, the church. So I always wondered, even as a kid, why is my mom, who struggles to pay our bills and put food on the table, tithing regularly, but then as soon as she sits down from tithing, the pastor stands up and says, let's take a love offering to repave the parking lot in the church. Isn't the tithe going to restore the church of God? But then the pastor would walk out every day in a nice suit. They'd go to the nice Italian restaurant down the road, and we'd go home, and we wouldn't even have electricity. But we were still tithing regularly. So there's a lot of things like that that separates personal belief in God and Christianity with, like, religion. I feel like they're very different.
My biggest problem about big churches and hey, like, I'm not praying correctly unless I'm praying around 1,000 other people of mine until Emperor Constantinople in 4000 AD like became the first Roman emperor that believed in Christianity and Catholicism. Before that, the church was 4 people in a basement talking about Jesus. And that's all, like, all you actually need is 2 people discussing Jesus to be a church.
Right.
You don't need hymns, you don't need a new parking lot, you don't need a $16 million building for a church.
Yep.
You don't need any of that. You just need 2 people that love to talk about Jesus. Like I always said when I was a kid and I was forced to go to Catholic church, like I always asked my priest, and I was like, wouldn't you rather have 33 people that want to be here rather than your 287 people that don't want to be here, and they think this is the only way they can get in the kingdom of heaven if they sit and listen to you for an hour and then, you know, like go get drunk and watch football?
Right. Yeah, religion's an interesting thing.
But we could get back to music.
Yeah, for sure. I actually, I don't know. I think one question that I would like to ask is, like, if you as Boot could build your, what is the word I'm looking for?
Dream tour?
Kind of like your ideal tour. And I've only ever asked this question to one other band, but it was kind of cool to figure out whether it's a band that isn't together, a member has passed away, it doesn't matter. Like, if you could build your dream tour, who would it be?
Well, my dream tour to come back from COVID, because I think about that all the time, just to, like, get me out there to as many people as I possibly could, would be, like, The Ghost Inside, Victims, Rig Time or Pickwick. And now I'm drawing a blank because I was actually asked this question. Boundaries and 156.
Nice.
Ooh, yeah, 156 is dope.
Nice.
But I think about tours all the time. Like, you get that one band that everybody's coming to see, and then you get like 3 or 4 up and coming bands so they can get that boost. And I mean basically like The Ghost Inside, when they were still a dying dream, played the house. Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. I do basement shows in Cincinnati. I have for 16. I've lived at the house 16 years, so 16 years. We're at, like, because COVID cut everything back this year, I think we've done 282 shows at the house in 16 years off and on. But like, when Ghost Inside was still a dying dream, they played at the house. And I mean, we've had like medium-sized bands, big bands. Like, we never had A Day to Remember, but Jeremy McKinnon played an acoustic set at the house. Tim from Rise Against has played an acoustic set at the house. The Front Bottoms played to 7 people at the house. 21 Pilots was the opening band on a show that I think did 12 people at the house. And I can't even remember who the headliner was for that. But it was just some other, you know, poppy, hip-hop, rock type stuff. Yeah, so I don't know. I do always think that like, psychologically, I have to think about like the positives of any tour, like even when I'm daydreaming about something, and like I would want it to be like, you know, a big band that's already established, a just under them, and then like the third band be like a band that needs just a little bit more push, the fourth band being another band that needs a little bit more push, and then I can just open. Right.
I mean, that's definitely a real thing. We got tickets to go see Varials at the Dome, and Wage War was on that show. he went because he was excited to see Varials. He had heard of Loathe. They were the openers, and he wanted to check them out.
Loathe's
I was
great.
going strictly for Wage War because I was on a kick with them for a while. I saw them open for Every Time I Die, and I loved them. But that's a real thing because I stood front row for Loathe, had no expectations, had no clue who they were, and they are now one of my most beloved bands. Like, they are an incredible band, and I would have probably never fallen in love with them or found them had they not been an opener on a show that I went to see a completely different act, and I can confidently say they blew Wage War out of the water at that show. Like, I would have rather seen Loathe headline. And that's no shade to Wage War, but, like, it was just kind of that shift for me, and so that could definitely be beneficial when you're, you know, opening for the right type of tour lineup at the right places. Definitely.
And that's also one of the things that's musically frustrating before COVID, and maybe it'll change after, but, like, you always have people that are like, oh, I'm here to see this band. They're playing fourth at 9:30. I'm going to show up at 9:15.
Right.
Instead of being like, oh, there's 5 bands on here. I'm
Check out all
paying
the
$20
bands.
for this show.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it happens more than I would like.
So, I mean, you've been doing boot for quite a while. How long have you been doing boot for?
6 years.
6 years. So that's a pretty good chunk of time. What are some honorable mentions from your highlight reel, so to speak, through doing boot? Like, any people that you've met that stick out to you through booking shows, other bands, whatever, or just moments that you remember the most?
I don't know.
So you've been a lot of places, met a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anything stand out?
Not right now.
No, that's all right.
I mean, like, there's so many that I would feel wrong naming one.
Makes sense.
I get that.
Like, I wouldn't, like, I could name probably 1,000 people.
I'd say because between you booking shows and not only that, but being in a band yourself, you've also done driving for bands and stuff as well. You have a lot of experiences
there's always
on the road.
Funny stuff and good stuff and bad stuff, and I won't name the band, but once we had a bass player that the van didn't have any heat, and it was like 11 degrees out, and we were just kind of like all huddling in the van, and he actually had a panic attack and almost passed out because of how cold he was.
Damn.
And then, like, somebody Google searched on their phone that the cold and panic attacks don't work like that. So he felt like he got, like, called out right away.
Oh, damn.
And I don't know. It was just a funny situation at the time. Like, none of us were nice. We were all freezing
Right.
in the middle of West Virginia. But
What a horrible place to be while you're cold.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think going anywhere where it's cold without heat is a good idea.
I mean, that's just
Part of what comes with it, though.
yeah. I mean, like, I've had vans and cars that didn't have heat. You know, you just figure it out.
Right.
Make do with
Gotta
it.
Make it work. What do you think is like the sickest venue you've ever played? You ever played any venues that like you just remember forever because they were super dope?
I will always remember the Warehouse in Wisconsin, not because it's super dope, but because there's no elevator, and you have 3 flights of stairs, and all the stairs are at 78-degree angles.
Yikes.
But Steven, who runs that place, is awesome. They are the longest running DIY all ages venue in the country.
That's awesome.
He's been open since like 1988.
Jeez.
And he opened it originally so his 80s glam industrial band would have a place to play.
Nice.
Isn't that how a lot of the great venues have started, though?
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like even why, places like this start.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're really not wrong.
The Warehouse, I'll just always Subterranean in Chicago is a cool venue.
I've never been there. I almost went to a show there, but didn't pan out.
Black Sheep Cafe in Springfield, Illinois is cool. Stuff at home. Yacht Club, my house.
Thompson House. I was gonna say the Thompson
House is a cool venue.
I think that's probably one of the coolest venues I've seen.
The first time I ever went to the Thompson House was before I had ever met you. This was before I was even around Ben, anything. I saw a Beatles cover band there. A friend of mine got tickets and just randomly took my friend and I with her. And I was just remembering, like, this is the coolest venue. And she's like, I'm pretty sure it's haunted. I'm like, what?
Definitely haunted. They killed Civil War POWs in the basement.
Oh, yikes.
I believe that. That place is a little
cool.
Eerie.
What? The place is a little eerie.
I've never really
I don't believe in ghosts, so like it doesn't affect me.
Well, yeah, I get that, but you took me through some of it during Q-Palooza, like the upstairs and stuff.
Yeah, the upstairs is supposed to be extra eerie because on the 3rd floor in like 1933, like a 9-year-old girl like hung herself from the roof.
Jesus.
God.
That's
it's brutal.
That's dark.
And people say all the time that they like hear her talking to herself and stuff.
Hmm.
But I've sat up there for like hours writing and never heard anything, so.
Oh. That's good, I guess.
We used to run a hot dog restaurant that was in the back of what used to be Sub Galley before they remodeled it and turned it into a dive bar. But the basement there was linked to the original basements that they used for the Underground Railroad.
Oh, wow.
And like the other guys I worked with, they all, believe in ghosts and stuff and thought that that was haunted. But I mean, like, I think I sat down in that basement for like an hour one time, like inventorying food and like
Nothing. Yeah. Well, what do you think, Zach? You got any interesting questions?
I don't know. Like, I know you've been, like you said, you've been doing this a really long time, like booking shows and doing all of that. What's kind of like your feeling on where it seems like things have been going more recently as compared to like previous kind of, because everything kind of comes and goes and flows.
I think everybody's been angrier. I don't know, like right now, like everybody's like fighting over whether we should have any shows, even though like cities and states are like making mandates, and then it's like, if we follow this mandate, then why should we not have a show? And my biggest thing is just live and let live. Like if somebody wants to, like I personally am not going to go to a show that's, in a bar, but yes, I'll play a show that's outdoors and like plenty far away from other people. But I think everybody just needs to take a step back, and if you don't agree with somebody, that's cool, but like maybe handled a different way. I mean, like I'm using an extreme here, but like we just live in such a cancel culture where it's like, hey, I saw this dude 6 years ago look across the room at a 14-year-old girl. His band's done. And I mean, like, that's a super extreme. But it just feels like that's kind of what everybody's, like, going for. I mean, lately there's been at least 3 or 4 bands that have been canceled where it's like, you see literally both sides, and like one of the people in the relationships is like, hey, this person yelled at me and was mean to me. But then you hear the other person's side, and you just realize that like both people in that relationship are toxic for each other.
Yeah.
And like that's not either person's fault. Like, you just have to come to terms with that. And you can't, like, cancel somebody for being toxic when you're being toxic too, but he's in a band and you're not.
True.
Yeah. Just getting personal, like letting your personal feelings get in business.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know, like, there's so many dicks in the music scene that have never been canceled. And then there's been so many nice people that, you know, like, are canceled. Because maybe they're nice, and they have that one blow up.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of notice more when it's somebody that has a reputation for being nice. That you know, and let's face it, a lot of it comes down to it sells more. It gets more attention in the media or in social media and things like that when you got somebody who has a reputation for being super nice who gets taken down for doing something shitty. Whereas you could have somebody who's always been a complete prick that, like
Franz.
They just let him go. I mean, it's funny
Fuck
because
you, Franz.
Well, I'll use somebody like,
I don't care for Franz.
Look at what's been going on. Well, what like tried to kind of happen like with Manson just this last year. Like,
I haven't even paid attention. That's like, too big. Like, I don't.
The funny thing to me about that is, it's like, it's fucking Manson for one.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's like, motherfucker used to put out like his home videos of shit of them like destroying backstages and peeing on groupies and doing all this kind of stuff, and that was just like nobody cared about it then. Nobody, you know, and then suddenly now we're gonna go fast forward 20,
well, I mean, if you want to go that big, you've always got the fact that, like, you know, everyone's like, oh, Bowie passed away, and was Bowie a great musician? Sure, but like Bowie spent his 20s fucking 14-year-old boys and girls. And like at the time it was just what everybody was like, oh, that's just normal. He's a rock star. He's living a rock star life. And now it's like some people are looking back on it and like that's sickening. And some people are looking back on it like, oh, it was a different time.
Yeah, I mean,
the whole age thing is weird. I had an ex-girlfriend, a couple ex-girlfriends ago, like her grandfather, when he met her grandmother was 34 and her grandmother was 13. But they lived in a small town. He worked on the farm that her dad owned. And like, you know, they hung out and he asked her dad's permission and her dad was like, hell yeah, you're a good dude. I would love, you know, to be your father-in-law. And it's just a different time.
Well, yeah, that kind of stuff was a lot more common a long time ago. I mean, things have changed, and I mean, I would agree with you as far as that we do seem to be living in a current culture where there is a lot more division and a lot more animosity and just aggression in general.
Oh yeah.
Which has been, you know, where it's been kind of nice to have a few people like, you know, like we've, you know, talked before on this, you know, about like over the New Year's about like, you know, Bennett, you know, Tyler Bennett and everything, and having people like that who were more inclusive, trying to bring more people together. And let's focus more on the things that we all agree on. Let's focus more on what we are, what we, you know, then.
And that's like something that I think that everybody should try, but then in the current culture, like, I'm not saying that would ever happen, but like, what if we're at a Fried Fest and Bennett's like worried about the turnout and like, you know, him and Cassie were together for how long they were together and then add another year to it. And then like, you know, Bennett just that one time like snaps and in front of everybody yells at Cassie. And then all of a sudden you got 13 people that are like, oh my God, he yelled at somebody. That's a terrible thing. No more Fried Fest. Everybody that's a part of this is canceled. Yada, yada, yada. And like, I'm not saying that would ever happen, but I'm saying like, that is what we live in right now. And I mean, like, I've seen 3 people this week extremely put down what happened at the Capitol, but like admit that they had voted for Trump. And like, there's people like, you need to be removed from your band. If you voted for Trump, you shouldn't be in music. Like,
yeah,
you
and
shouldn't.
that's just it. That's ridiculous.
And like, I don't like Trump, but I mean, like, everyone still should have their own opinion. You can't like force your belief system on somebody else.
Yeah, unfortunately though, especially the last 4 years,
And that's the thing,
that's
like,
something
so,
that we've kind of
and that's
gotten.
and that's the biggest thing. That's what 5 years ago, the hardcore scene was extremely PC, and it still is. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being PC, but like, we talked about it then, that when you have such a strong PC culture, you will eventually have a pushback.
Yep.
And that's what Trump supporters are, is that pushback to PC culture. It's something we've all known was coming. And then when it got here, we all acted like, oh, I don't understand. But like, it was so easy to understand.
Well, I mean, some of us had been warning that kind of a thing was going to happen for a while.
I mean, like, when you have probably 7 million people, we live in a country of 330 million people. I'm going to assume you probably have 2 to 5 million white people that thinks it's okay to use the N-word as a racial slur to put down black people. And when you tell them for years and years and years, oh, I heard you say this, you've lost your job. Oh, I heard you say this, we're calling, you know, like, and getting your kids taken away. Oh, I heard you say this. Then eventually they're going to find other people like that that agree with them, and they're going to kick back and say, you can't take my rights away. I'm going to say what I want to say. I don't think black people are, you know, anything special, and if anything, I think they should be removed from our country because we're a white nation. Now, the majority of our country would never think that. But you're going to, when you have 2 people in a small town saying that, it's one thing. And when you have 5 million people all together in unison, loudly boasting about it, it seems like it's our entire country.
Well, that kind of plays into another little thing, which is even what we're, as if those of you who are watching this can't already realize, this is coming literally a week, not even a week after the Capitol riots.
Yep.
And a week before the inauguration.
Yeah, a week before the inauguration, even. But like, I just, you've seen, I was gonna say, it brings up this thing with censorship and stuff seems to be a big issue right now suddenly for all these people. And it's like, you don't even understand what true censorship is. I mean, is it concerning that some of these platforms and stuff are going, we're just not going to let you on here anymore? It's like, no,
okay, so real quick, censorship
sense,
is the word that everyone keeps
and it's the
giving
wrong
out.
It's the wrong
But
to be using.
the thing is, we're all raised in America and told we have freedom. And we're all raised in some form of most of us are raised in some form of Christianity, and we're all told we have free will. And the thing is, the teaching of what we have stops there. So, like, one, no part of the government ever wants us to have true freedom. They just want us to think we have the option of freedom. And on top of that, I get in an argument with Uncle Tom all the time, is, oh, that was one of the uncles I was talking about. He's my uncle. His name's Tom. He's white. I do get bad stuff about that sometimes. But anyways, he's like, oh, I can't say this. Where's my freedom of speech? Oh, I can't say this. Where's my freedom of speech? Uncle Tom, freedom of speech has never meant freedom of consequence. If you walk up to a black person and use a racial slur against them, they have every right to knock you the fuck out.
That's a good... I've never heard anybody put it that way. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence. That's a really good way to put it.
And I know, especially...
And honestly, the whole thing about God and free will has to do with your own faith in it. But free will is the selling point that leaders of churches will tell you when they don't actually want you. They will force feed, brainwash you into thinking exactly what they're thinking, which in Habitat steals your free will.
Right.
Mm.
For sure.
Yeah,
It's true.
I was more bringing it up because I find it interesting, because as most artists, especially musicians and songwriters, the idea of censorship is, of course, something that we fight. It's something that we don't want, because we want to be able to have the freedom to say what we want to say. But when I hear all of this, and I brought it up mostly because we've all been hearing it a lot in the last few days, in particular, with everything that's been going on, and it's like, I don't disagree that true censorship is a problem, but what I see happening isn't true censorship.
Yeah.
It's private organizations and private people being like, hey, we have terms, we don't allow hate speech. We don't allow people to be inciting violence in that way. And they're finally putting their foot down and saying, no, you can't do that. And, I mean, the only concern in that is, does that, and I can understand them in this, does that start the downward spiral into allowing them to do it now more for those people that it really shouldn't be used on?
The biggest thing about,
because now they've set a precedent.
The biggest thing about censorship is, where does it start and where does it end?
Yeah.
Because I can't talk about killing a cop on my hardcore song, but that sister, brother, Mary, mother, uncle, father, daughter that lives down the street can write a country song about molesting his son, and it's okay if he doesn't come right out and say it and uses cryptic messages, but it's clear what he's saying. And not to pick on country, but I mean, I don't know, that's the thing. I mean, the whole thing on censorship in the 80s and 90s is why let this dude rap about smacking a hoe or, going to his neighbor's house and robbing him with a gun, or doing 9 lines of blow off a stripper's asshole.
Better be bleached.
Better.
No dingleberries.
Yeah, no dingleberries.
Sorry, I had to throw a laugh in there.
But I mean, that's the thing. I don't know, nobody can actually tell you. It literally just depends on who it is. Ozzy and Slayer and Judas Priest and Twisted Sister and all that stuff was censored because it looked crazy, so it must be Satan. But Slayer and now Alice Cooper and Ozzy and all of those guys are Christians. Wasp is even a Christian band now. Everybody wants to say something crazy so they can get out there and get their name out there. But then, how do you know that are they saying that crazy because they actually believe that? How many death metal bands are talking about, cutting up dead babies?
Oh, yeah.
And they would never,
exactly.
none of those dudes would ever.
Exactly.
Right.
They're the most biggest teddy bears that couldn't even kill
well,
a
I mean,
fly.
it's the same argument that could be used for other mediums too. I mean, people have tried to use that on, against films and television and all of those things. Video games. I mean, God, how many times when we were younger were they trying to attack video games for,
GTA,
the cause of things? When I was young, it was fucking Mortal
Kombat.
Kombat.
Yeah, the blood in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
So let's release a Mortal Kombat game without any blood.
And that was horrible.
It was
And
horrible.
it didn't even matter because Street Fighter 2 was better.
I mean,
What is the best game and why is it Street Fighter 2?
No, that's not the best game. The best
Not
game,
in the whole world.
the best
at all.
game in the whole world is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
I counter that with Spyro the Dragon, but to each their own.
Spyro and Crash Bandicoot are trash games.
And that concludes our podcast with the Obnoxious Boot. Thank you so much for joining us today. Any final words? Oh, y'all think I'm kidding.
Final words.
You're like, I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm good.
Nope.
Nope.
Finish.
The final words are nope. That's gonna conclude.
Oh, hang on. I got a final word. Are we still recording?
Yeah, everything's gonna be
Okay.
recording.
Cool.
I'm done with you. We're done. All right.
Yeah. Well.
That's it, guys.
Yeah.
See you next week.